Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Picket Fence Studios, and today we're going to be using lots of die cuts. This cute little stamp set we're going to use for the sentiments, but I'm using the bees and the beetle and these two butterflies, and then I'm also using some background die cuts. There's a garden lattice, and then this A2 rectangle one is pretty fun because there's two backgrounds in there, but then there's also some rectangle like layering rectangle sizes, which is great. So I'm just going to die cut everything out of white. For the backgrounds, I'll be keeping them in white, but for the die cuts, I will be coloring them. Now, the butterflies and the beetle have a shadow, but the bees do not, and I wanted them to be matchy-matchy. So in order to create a second layer that's going to have all the pieces in them, I'm cheating just a little bit. So I'm lining my die cuts back up and I'm leaving that piece in place. And it will then die cut through my second sheet of cardstock, but it's not going to cut through so cleanly that it pops out all of my pieces, and then I can just tape it from the back. Now, my smaller bee, you can see I did lose like a couple of pieces on the bottom. I obviously have all of the pieces, so I will just like inlay, puzzle piece those back in. So I'm going to flip it over. And for the one that stayed completely intact, I'll just be able to put some tape behind it to hold those in place more permanently until, I glue them onto my card. And then this doesn't have to be perfect. Like, just cover up the parts that your actual, like the little pieces parts are going to come out of. For this smaller one, I'll still put the tape in place, just like I did with the other one, but then I will flip it back over, and those couple of little segments that fell out, I will just push those back into place, and they'll stick to the tape. So then once that portion is done, I'll be able to trim the tape off so you can't see any of that. And this doesn't have to be, perfect, because nobody's going to see the underside of it. So I just trim as closely as I can. If it's an area where maybe it was a little bit challenging to get to, I just ripped it. Because again, it's going to be adhered down, so nobody's going to see that portion. It doesn't really matter what it looks like. And then this is going to give us a behind layer, so that our B is also 2 layers, just like everything else. The only difference is it won't be a shadow. It'll just be all one size. I hope that makes sense. But so I got the idea for this video because of the beetle. So here, this is the paper inking palette. I'm just going to use this to hold my die cuts in place. And I am going to do, whether it's the top layer or the base layer for all of my little insects here, they're all going to be colored the same, and I'm doing all of the coloring with my pouncers. I have both the regular size pouncers and the pint size. For the vast majority of this, I'm going to be using the pint size. These are smaller, and they're a really great size if you're trying to do multiple colors on one die cut. The intention for paper pouncers was always to be able to put down lots of color really quickly, and they do that excellently. If you want more of a blended look, you may want to do the blender brushes, but I really didn't I have not found having an issue having it blend on more intricate dies. You'll see when we get to the butterfly that where it has a large expansive area, it is a bit more challenging to blend it because that's not what their intention is. But for these smaller ones, they're perfect. They look, just like you would do with a brush, just a lot less fuss. So I did some what did I do? Salvage Patina and Salty Ocean. So lighter blue colors on the wings. And then I'm going to do the bee, the actual bodies in 2 yellows, mustard seed and fossilized amber. You certainly could do, black and then color the other stripes yellow. I knew I wanted to put stripes on the top portion of the body, and obviously it's easier to color a black marker over yellow inking than vice versa. So here I have these two. Now on the base layer, I'm going to color the heart in pink, and then I'm also going to color the stripes in black. The black this is just a Copic marker. You could also use a Sharpie. You're just going to fill in the areas that would be black when you were looking at it. So like their little head, their antenna, and then again, like I previously stated, I'm going to just draw myself a couple of little lines here that would be like the continuation of the stripes from the bottom on up. And I'm going to do that for both of the top pieces because this is going to be the one that we see the majority of. The bottom pieces, we don't have to be quite as nice about it because we're going to have that top layer. So for the bottom piece, I'm coloring in just the stripe section, and you can see here how one will lay on top of the other, and you won't be able to see like any of those messy lines. I did notice that the one of the little stripes has like some detail on it, and I didn't get all of that. So I wanted to make sure that I went back in, and that's why it's important just as we're going that we're, checking our progress. So that way you're not getting it all glued together and then trying to go back in. So now once the coloring portion is done, I am going to go ahead and put these together using my glue press for that, just because they are, more intricate dies, and it makes it super, super easy to put down just little teeny tiny amounts of glue. And then I'll just, squish everything, make sure they're all lined up. And then the last step before I move on to the next insect will be to go back in with that black marker and just make sure the edges are colored anywhere that I wanted, like anywhere that I put the black marker, so that you won't be able to see from the side that it has a white core. So that's pretty easy to do. And then we're going to move on to the butterfly. So again, I'm using my inking palette to just hold that. And then I may... like sometimes you just have to know yourself. I may have selected one too many colors for this butterfly. I probably could have gotten away with one yellow, one orange, one pink, and one purple. But that's not what I did. So here is where, because this die cut is a little bit larger, I'm using the, what is that? The normal size, like the regular size paper pouncers. And then for each consecutive color, I will be using the pint size ones. And I'm just trying to get almost like a sunset kind of look. So from a yellow to a purple. You could do these, whatever color you wanted. Butterflies come in all kinds of colors. But I was trying to, because I like things that are matchy-matchy. That's just me. I know, because I got to photograph them together and I want them to be complementary. So I was trying to bridge the gap between the pink, purple, teal I wanted to do for the beetle and the yellow, blue I had for the bees. So I was like, well, this will be a good go between. Plus, I like the contrast that it creates, like between the black and the bright colors. So all of these are going to have some black on them. You'll see that shadow portion where it is just a little bit more challenging to kind of blend those together with the pouncers. I never switched to anything else, and I just kept going back over it and kind of working the color into the die cut, and eventually it does blend. But the life-changing blending brushes from Picket Fence, like those would be much easier to get them to blend on a larger expanse of cardstock like this is. So anyway, back to what I was originally talking about, which was how I got the idea. So when I was a kid growing up, we had a pool. God love my parents, because pools are a lot of work. And now that I'm an adult and we have put in a pool 2 years ago now for our children, they are quite a bit of work. And I say that knowing that my husband does the vast majority of the work, which we do appreciate him for. But so when I was a kid growing up, we had a pool. We also had these bushes in the front. They were like purple colored bushes, and they were known to attract Japanese beetles. And so we had beetles in the pool all of the time, all the time. So here what I'm doing is I didn't like the shadow around the body. It didn't bother me around the wings, but I didn't love it around the body since I was coloring the body black. So I'm just going to go in and trim that part off. And I'll keep the rest of the shadow for behind the wings, and no one will know. So we would get beetles all the time. They would be in the pool all the time. We'd be having to, skim them out. But they, insects typically gross me out. I mean, quite honestly, you guys have heard, if you have watched my channel, you've heard my spider stories. But beetles never really bothered me. And so, like, I would just scoop them out of the pool with my hand if I was in there swimming and one of them got in there. Because, like, I didn't want them in my hair or anything, but I didn't, I wasn't trying to murder them, basically. And if you've ever looked at a beetle up close, or really most insects, like hard shell insects especially, they are kind of iridescent, or their wings are iridescent, like with bees or dragonflies or things like that. And so I was like, how would you recreate this? And so that got me thinking, that how cool they would look, like really, shiny and iridescent on the card. And that led me to perfect pearls. So that is the technique that we are going to be using today. So this is the butterfly. You can see I added some detail with the black and just some white spots. Here, I didn't like how kind of open it was there, so I decided to color this in black. And then I just added some white dots, much, much smaller because that area is smaller. But some white dots there just for some added detail. And then we're going to move on to the beetle. And like I said, the beetle is what started it all, because that's how I got to thinking about, the kind of iridescent one. So I really wanted to do them like a teal and a purple, and the good go between a teal and a purple is a pink. Because when you mix the pink and the teal, it creates kind of its own variation of purple. So that is what you see me doing here. Now, a lot of this on the beetle, like a lot of the blue on the beetle or teal, you're not really going to see, because his antennas are going to be colored in black, but you will see it on the shadow. So, you'll just have to, you'll have to make a choice of whether or not you want to include the shadow, or if you just want the beetle, like the delicate die cut by itself. But so perfect pearls they're really great, inexpensive way to add lots of shine to something, and they adhere with water. So I used mine dry this time around, but you certainly could use them, mix them with water and, cut these out of watercolor paper and paint them on. That would be beautiful. But this is just a fun, like, easy way to add lots of shine to your die cuts for really minimal effort and really minimal dollars. So here is our beetle. And this is, you can do, the medium, the I don't know what they call it. Yes, I do. It is a medium. But what is the first part of it? I don't know. What's included in the kits? There's kits. But you can also use Versamark, which is just clear watermark ink. So I'm using my white pouncer, and I'm pouncing my Versamark all over this little beetle. And then I'm going to pick up some perfect pearls. This is in the color Iris, which is like a pretty pinky purple color. And I'm just pouncing it with my brush, my big fluffy brush, all over. And then once I have it where it's completely covered, I'm going to hold it in place, and then I'm going to very briskly rub my paintbrush over top of it to get rid of any of the excess. And then look at how shiny this is. And that black picks up the color so well. Perfect Pearls typically is more visible on darker pigment like cardstocks. So you see it, and it, is shiny on the color, like the ink blending that we've done, but you really, really see it on the black, which is part of the reason why I included black in all of my insects. So for this one, I'm going to use bubblegum pink to go right over top of it. And again, it's not going to, like, that yellow is still going to be yellow. The orange is still going to be orange. But it's really going to stick to that black and that like pinkish purple color. And give it this beautiful pink shine. If you don't want to color, they have a white, but they also have Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearl. And so that would not give you a colored shine like these ones are. It would just give you just a white. For the bees, I'm going to mix my Perfect Pearls. So I'm going to do a gold on the body of the bee and a turquoise on the wings. You can mix any of these, and there's tons of videos out there on how to do backgrounds with them and things like that. But I chose to do the turquoise first because it is a little bit of a lighter color. So I'm doing the turquoise is beautiful, by the way. This is going to be one of my favorite Perfect Pearls colors. So I did the wings first, and then I'm going to go in and pick up the gold, and then I'm going to do that all over the body of the bee, which again, that black is going to pick up that gold shine. So when you look at the die cuts like head on, they still look, black and yellow and blue. But when you catch them in the light, they're going to look more gold, more turquoise. And then the same thing, you want to make sure you're getting off all of the excess. So just very vigorously running that brush over there to knock those off. In order to set this, you just spray just a light mist of water and kind of wave your die cuts through there, and that will set the Perfect Pearl so it doesn't come out. I decided to die cut a little heart, and I did this. I did not show it to you because it's the same thing. I did it the same way that I did the butterfly, same color scheme, and then I used the Iris Perfect Pearls to go over top of that. For the sentiments, one of them I'm going to stamp directly on the heart. I may have some regrets about that. I'm not entirely sure, but as you're creating, everything is a learning experience. And so sometimes you just have to take it for what it is, that if you had to do it all over again, maybe you would do it a smidge differently. And then the other two, I will just be stamping in just Picket Fence's black ink. I'm just going to stamp them and die cut them. The High Honey on the heart, there will be no need to die cut because it's going to stay on that heart, which is going to connect my two bees. That's how I ended up with that. So these do have coordinating dies. I'm going to go ahead and put those in place with some tape and run them through my die cutting machine. And then we're going to work on building the cards together. Now, these, what do we call them? The little rectangle patterns that are included in that set. So the intention, which I think is brilliant, is with a lot of layering sets or stacking sets, you get all these different sized rectangles or squares or circles. And very rarely does anybody use the smaller ones, which is true for myself as well. So this set, instead of kind of wasting that space, gives you two different patterns and then the larger layering square or rectangles that you can use for, A2 size cards, which is fantastic. So for this one, I am using the Picket Fence's foam adhesive, and this is pretty thick. It's very sticky. And you'll see me do it here in a second once I peel the backer off. I always put liquid adhesive on the back of it because when this stuff sticks, it stays stuck. There's no redos, there's no go backs. And so that liquid adhesive gives me the little bit of wiggle room that I need to make sure that everything is lined up straight in case I do need to pick it back up in, just the first couple of moments. So for this, I'm just adhering this down to a black card base, and then I will adhere my die cuts down flat on top of it. My little sentiment heart, and then these two cute little bees. I did go back in with a white gel pen and add a little shadow on the honey. I kind of wish that I would have white heat embossed the sentiment, but I didn't. And so we can talk about what I wished I would have done on every card almost every time. So I'm just going to take it as a learning experience and move on. This is the garden lattice, and again, all of these are being adhered white on white because I want the iridescent, the colored die cuts to be the star of the show, and these patterns are just the supporting actors. So for this one, I'm going to adhere the die cut background down flat, and I'm going to pop up my butterfly and my sentiment. Just a different take on the way that we arranged the first card. So the butterfly is this is obviously a large butterfly, so he's going to go and fill out kind of my top right, and then I'll put my sentiment down onto the bottom left so that my butterfly is facing my sentiment and kind of guiding the eye. That's and for these ones, like the stamping in white on black just made sense because I knew all of my backgrounds were going to be white. For the beetle, we're going to do something just slightly different. So this almost reminds me of like a rattan kind of die cut, like the print of it. And so I cut myself a frame, and then I'm going to adhere my die cut to the back of the frame. So we're actually going to be able to see through it to the black cardstock behind it. And then I will use that same foam adhesive, but just around the outside edge. You certainly could make this a shaker as well if you wanted to put some acetate in there. But I just really wanted it to look like my little beetle was sitting atop of this, little trellis, and you were going to be able to, see through to the back. So once that is lined up, I did not add any more foam tape. I just adhered my beetle down flat. And this time, I flip-flopped him from the last layout. He went to the top left, and then my sentiment went down to the bottom right. So you can see me kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to do here. I think even like after making all of them, the beetle was my favorite going in, and I think coming out at the end of it, he is still my favorite. I like the color that the shadow gives me, but I would be very interested to see what these would look like without the shadow backer. So in order to accent my sentiments and kind of tie everything together, I'm using 2 different sequin mixes. I am using, because, I got a lot of colors going on. So the first one I'm using is Oceans of Green, and then the other one is Purple Side of the Rainbow. And these both have a good mix of teals and purples, a little bit of blue, some yellows. So this was, basically all the things that I had going on in my color scheme. So all of these got not the same amount of every color, but they did get a mix of these 2 sets. And then this is all of the cards. So I hope it inspires you to kind of play around with your die cuts and your perfect pearls and see what kind of color combinations you can come up with. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you found something here to inspire you. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.